Okay, so you know that saying, the one that sounds like straight out of a movie, maybe a fantasy novel. A butterfly flaps its wings in Brazil and a tornado happens in Texas. Now, when I first heard that, I thought, okay, is that like actual science or just, a cool way of saying stuff happens? Have you heard that one too?
Yeah, I
And
think
maybe wondered the same thing.
yeah, it's definitely science. And you're right, it sounds dramatic, but it actually comes from a really fascinating area called chaos theory. And that's kind of our mission for this deep dive, actually,
Yeah.
to unpack how these tiny, tiny changes, things you'd barely notice, can, well, ripple outwards and lead to huge, sometimes totally unpredictable effects down the line. It's all about how connected things are, often in ways we don't see at first.
Oh, and just to be clear right away, it's not literally about one specific butterfly causing one specific tornado. It's more about the scientific idea behind it, sensitive systems and all that. Okay, wait. So you're telling me this idea suggests that a butterfly doing its thing somewhere could genuinely mess up my beach holiday plans. Like
Yeah.
my whole week of sun could get rained out because of some insect flapping its wings. It's wow.
Well, no, not quite like that. Your holiday is probably safe from that specific butterfly. It's more about the concept. Think about really sensitive systems, and weather is like the classic example, right? In those systems, even the tiniest change right at the very start, the initial conditions, can lead to completely different results later on, vastly different. The butterfly is just a metaphor for that initial tiny change in a delicate environment.
Okay, that's starting to make more sense. My brain's already buzzing with this. But who figured this out? I mean, someone must have noticed this, right? Was it some kind of, like, accident?
It sort of was a bit of a happy accident, you could say, that helped make this idea more, well, formal. We call it the butterfly effect now, popularly. And the credit goes to Edward Lorenz. He was a meteorologist back in the 1960s. He was running these really complex computer simulations, trying to model weather patterns, predict them over time. And one day, he wanted to rerun part of a simulation. So he typed the starting number back in. But instead of the full, really precise number, 0.506127, he just, well, he rounded it, put in 0.506. He figured, such a tiny difference, a few decimal places, it wouldn't really change anything much. Same basic result.
Then I guess it didn't work out that way. What actually happened?
Not even close. What happened was pretty groundbreaking, actually. The whole simulation just went completely off the rails. The weather pattern it predicted looked nothing like the original run with the full number. Lorenz was, well, stunned. It wasn't just a little different. It was a totally different future weather system, all from rounding 0.506127 down to 0.506.
Whoa. Seriously, all that difference. Just because of a few missing decimals. That's practically nothing. A rounding error basically changed the simulated weather completely.
Wow. It makes you think, doesn't it? Like those tiny details in life. Imagine forgetting like 0.127 on some form and your whole life path changes. That's kind of mind-blowing.
It really is, isn't it? And that tiny error showed something huge about complex systems. It proved that predicting something like weather, long term, it's basically impossible because these systems are just so sensitive to their starting point, those initial conditions. Any tiny little deviation at the beginning, something you can barely measure, can snowball into a completely different future. And what Lorenz found wasn't just about weather, you see. It opened up this whole idea that applies to so much more.
So, okay, if I'm getting this,
Yeah.
chaos theory is kind of saying the world, or big parts of it anyway, are like a super sensitive, unpredictable teenager, maybe, prone to sudden mood swings based on the smallest thing. Huh? It's not a bad way to put it, actually. And yeah, we're going to see this idea popping up all over the place, not just weather, history, relationships, even big global events. The butterfly effect is kind of everywhere. Stay tuned. We've got some surprising examples coming up.
Okay, right. So we've got the butterfly. We've got Edward Lorenz and his happy accident with the numbers. But let's nail this down for everyone listening. What is the butterfly effect, really? Beyond just the catchy name and this chaos theory it comes from. Because, honestly, chaos. My first thought is my desk before coffee on a Monday morning. Just a mess.
Right. That's definitely one kind of chaos. So, okay, the butterfly effect itself. At its core, it's this idea that small actions, tiny changes, things you might not even notice, they can lead to really unpredictable, often huge consequences later on. Like we said, not literally one butterfly. But it highlights how sensitive some systems are right at the start. Think of pushing the first domino in a really, really long, complicated line. That tiny first push, it can end up knocking down something enormous way at the end. The effect is way bigger than the cause, you see.
Okay, yeah, so it's like the whole world or parts of it are like this giant, super intricate spider web. And even pulling one tiny thread, just a little bit, it
Exactly.
changes the whole shape, the tension, everything.
Yeah.
That kind of interconnected web idea.
That's a perfect way to picture it. Exactly. Now, chaos theory. That's the science behind it all, the sort of mathematical foundation that explains why that web behaves like that. It says that in certain really complex systems like weather, yeah, but also maybe traffic flow in a city, or even how people behave together, tiny differences at the start or small disturbances along the way can lead to totally different outcomes down the road, often wildly different. The science says these systems follow rules, they're deterministic, but they're also fundamentally unpredictable in the long run because of that sensitivity.
Okay, let me try like put that into a normal day. You're saying
Yep.
if I leave my house, say 30 seconds later than usual one morning,
Uh-huh.
I could miss my regular train, which means I might meet someone totally different on the next train. And maybe that one conversation sends my life off in a completely new direction. Is that the kind of thing? That sounds wild.
That's a great example, a really relatable one. Yeah. Maybe missing that train means you grab coffee somewhere new, and there you bump into someone who ends up being, I don't know, a key mentor or a best friend or even your future partner. It's not like magic or fate. It just shows how sensitive things are to timing and sequences and how small choices add up. Our lives are like that too.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
kind of beautiful and also a little bit terrifying, maybe, that our lives can pivot on these tiny, tiny moments. But wait, does this mean everything is just random then? Like pure chaos? Our lives are just dice rolls and what we do doesn't really matter because it's all just bouncing around? That feels not great.
No, not at all random in that sense. That's really important. Chaos theory isn't saying there are no rules. It means the system is just so incredibly complex, so many moving parts interacting, feeding back on each other, that even if we knew all the rules perfectly, we just couldn't possibly predict the exact outcome way down the line. Think about trying to predict exactly where every single leaf will land in a huge swirling autumn wind. There's physics involved, sure, but predicting thousands of them. Good luck. It looks chaotic because it's so complex, but it's still following underlying principles, deterministic but unpredictable.
Huh. So it's like life has rules. There's a structure, definitely, but it's also kind of throwing dice constantly, so we can never really know the next move for sure.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting paradox, isn't it? Order and unpredictability all mixed up.
You've got it. That's perfectly put. That's the paradox right at the heart of it. And it's what makes things so dynamic, so full of unexpected possibilities. Now, to really bring this home, let's look at a couple of real historical moments. Butterfly effects that maybe you didn't realize started so small because history. It's absolutely full of them.
Okay, I'm ready. The theory's blowing my mind, and the everyday examples are making me second-guess my breakfast choices. But yeah, hit me with the history. Give me some solid proof. Where did something tiny, seemingly nothing, lead to something absolutely massive? Show me it happened. Lay it on me.
Okay, buckle up then. These are pretty amazing. Let's start with, well, one of the biggest events ever, World War I. I mean, this conflict changed the entire planet, right? Empires fell, the whole map was redrawn, and it might have all kicked off because a driver took a wrong turn.
Whoa, hang on. A wrong turn? Like someone missed an exit and suddenly global war. That sounds like, I don't know, a sketch comedy premise. How? Tell me more.
It does sound absurd, I know. But here's what happened. June 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, is visiting Sarajevo. Now, there was a group of Serbian assassins wanting independence, planning to kill him. One threw a bomb at the Archduke's car, but it bounced off, exploded later, hurt some other people. So the Archduke was okay after that first attempt. The assassins thought they'd failed. They scattered, feeling pretty down.
Okay. So far, so lucky for the Archduke. Dodged a bullet, or a bomb, rather. Then what?
Right. But then later that same day, this is just pure chance, really astonishing. Yeah. The Archduke's driver took a detour. He was meant to avoid the city center after the bomb incident,
Right.
but he made a wrong turn, took a side street he wasn't supposed to, and then, incredibly, he had to stop the car right in front of one of the assassins, a young guy named Gavrilo Princip. Princip was just sitting at a cafe on that very street, totally depressed, thinking the whole plan was a failure, his chance was gone, And then suddenly, there's the Archduke right in front of him. A second chance, completely unexpected. He pulled out his gun and, well, he shot and killed the Archduke and his wife.
No way. So a wrong turn, a single wrong turn by one driver
Right.
led directly to the event that triggered World War I, a war that killed millions.
Of the long thought. The scale of that consequence is just
Yeah,
staggered. It is. That one assassination ignited this unbelievable chain reaction across Europe. Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia. Then all those alliances clicked into place. Germany backing Austria, Russia backing Serbia, France backing Russia. And boom, the whole continent, then much of the world, was at war. One wrong turn, one moment of chance, and the 20th century was changed forever. It's probably one of the most dramatic and tragic examples of the butterfly effect you can find.
That is, yeah, mind-boggling. Check your GPS a whole new meaning. Okay, give me another one. Maybe something a bit less devastating. Something good that came from a small thing.
All right, yeah, let's shift gears. How about a story with a massively positive outcome? The discovery of penicillin. Another fantastic example of a tiny, almost careless moment leading to something huge for humanity. So it's 1928. Alexander Fleming, Scottish scientist, bacteriologist, and apparently he was, let's just say, not the tidiest person in the lab. He was heading off on vacation. And in his rush, he left some Petri dishes out. Dishes with Staphylococcus bacteria cultures growing on them. Just left them there, uncovered, near an open window. Bit of an oversight, you know. Bad lab practice, really.
Okay, sounds like something I might do. So he goes away, comes back, finds his messy dishes. Then what?
Exactly. He comes back, looks at the dishes he left out, and notices something odd on one of them. There's this mold growing, a fuzzy blue-green patch. But the amazing thing was, all around that patch of mold, there was a clear circle, a zone where the bacteria the staph had been growing just weren't there. They'd been killed off. That accidental contamination leaving the dish out, window open, letting some random mold spore float in, that led directly to identifying penicillin, the world's first real antibiotic.
And the impact of that discovery was, I mean, it's hard to even measure, right?
Absolutely monumental.
Yeah.
Penicillin is estimated to have saved, over 200 million lives since then. It completely changed medicine, how we treat infections, surgeries, childbirth. It changed human health forever. All from a messy lab bench and an open window. It really shows how a small mistake, something seemingly negative, can spark something incredibly positive.
So basically, sometimes the biggest breakthroughs happen because smart people are just a bit messy and their mess accidentally saves millions of lives. That's actually the most inspiring accident story ever. It's incredible. A tiny slip-up leads to this huge positive wave.
Sometimes, yeah. That's the unpredictable beauty of it, isn't it? A little accident, a moment of oversight, seeing something unexpected, and boom, changes the world for the better. It really speaks to how even random seeming events can have these massive beneficial ripples.
Okay, but surely it's not just famous people or massive world events or slightly messy scientists. What about, us, regular people living our normal lives? Does this butterfly effect thing happen in our day-to-day stuff too?
Oh, absolutely. All the time. Constantly happening around us. And to us, often without us even noticing. Think about it. Maybe you're just scrolling online, killing time. You click on some random article you wouldn't normally read. But something in that article just clicks, inspires you. And it leads you to change your career path entirely. Or start a new project. Or maybe even start some local group that makes a real difference in your community. That random click, there was a butterfly flap.
Or, yeah, the people we meet.
Exactly. Or think about someone deciding, maybe on a whim, just out of curiosity, to sign up for a local workshop. Or maybe an online course. And in the chat or during a break, they strike up a conversation with someone. Totally casual. And that connection, that small interaction, ends up becoming a huge business partnership. Or a lifelong friendship. Or even leads to marriage. Just clicking register or deciding to show up that day.
Yeah.
That was the tiny flap that set a whole future path in motion. It's happening constantly, these subtle ripples.
So, this butterfly effect thing, it's everywhere, right? It's woven into, the fabric of everything, our lives, the universe. But we only really see it, we only grasp its power when we look back. In the moment, while it's happening, it's usually invisible.
Exactly. Often totally invisible while it's unfolding. Just happening under the surface.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you look back, connect the dots later, sometimes it's just astonishingly clear how one tiny thing led to a totally different place. And that's why understanding this isn't just about cool history facts or science. It's about appreciating how interconnected our own lives are and how much impact our seemingly small choices can actually have.
Okay, right. I get it. Small things matter. A tiny action, a small choice, it ripples out, creates effects we didn't expect, good or bad. But here's the big question for me, and probably for everyone listening. Why should I care about this right now? I mean, if we only really see the butterfly effect after it's happened, looking back,
Hmm.
how does knowing about it actually help me today? It feels a bit like, 2020 hindsight.
That's the crucial question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you're right, the butterfly effect isn't about predicting the future. It's not a crystal ball. That's just not possible with these complex systems. What it is about, though, is understanding, maybe a deeper sense of responsibility, not like a heavy burden, but more like recognizing your own influence, appreciating that even your smallest actions can have an impact, even if you don't see it right away. Maybe you never see it. It's about recognizing the currents you're part of creating.
But if it's all so sensitive and unpredictable, doesn't that just mean we're kind of powerless? Like, whatever I plan, some random tiny thing could just flip the whole script anyway. Sounds a bit fatalistic. Like we're just leaves in the wind.
Oh, not powerless at all. Actually, quite the opposite. You're deeply connected, and because of that, you're influential. Look, the idea isn't that every tiny thing you do will cause some massive earthquake somewhere. That's not it. The point is, we just never know which small thing might be the one to start a big ripple. That uncertainty, that unpredictability, it isn't a flaw. It's just how these complex systems are. It's the nature of life's dance. And you're definitely one of the dancers.
But then, how do I know what would have happened if I'd chosen differently? How can I ever really weigh my choices or feel sure about my path if I can't see those other timelines, those other branches that split off from every tiny decision?
And that's the paradox, isn't it? It's really the core of living with this awareness. You don't know. You can't know. And maybe that's what makes it so profound, so human. Every moment, every choice, even tiny ones. It's like a fork in the road of time. You stand there, you pick a path, and you walk it. You can wonder about the what-ifs, play out scenarios in your head, but you'll never truly see where those other paths went. And that's okay. That's not a bug. It's the feature. It's the unfolding mystery. That uncertainty is what makes life dynamic, full of potential.
The butterfly effect isn't just about consequences or unpredictability. It's really about learning to live with the unknown, embracing that uncertainty that's part of every moment. That's actually much deeper than I first thought, accepting that we just can't know everything.
Yes, beautifully put. You've really nailed it. It's a profound, humbling reminder, even when you feel like what you do doesn't matter, like your efforts are too small to count. They just might. Everything might. So, how you treat someone in passing. A small creative spark you follow, even just a few words in a random chat. You could be setting something amazing or maybe challenging in motion, and you might never trace it back.
Wow. That actually, yeah, that gives me chills, like in a good way. So even the smallest kindness I show someone, a real smile, helping someone out, it
Yeah.
might start this chain reaction of good stuff that I never even see, never get credit for.
Exactly. And, well, the flip side is also true, which kind of adds to the weight of it, right? A careless word, something thoughtless, maybe a time you didn't speak up or didn't act. That could be the butterfly wing that didn't flap when maybe it could have, and maybe that changed nothing. Or maybe it quietly changed everything for someone else or for you in ways you'll never know. It's that constant ripple, cause, and effect that shapes our reality.
Okay, so we've gone through chaos theory, Lorenz's computer glitch, World War I starting from a wrong turn. Wow. I'm still processing it all. But what are we supposed to do with this as listeners right now? If everything's connected and tiny actions ripple out forever in ways we can't predict, how do we live with that? Should I become like hyper careful, worry about every single word, every step? That sounds exhausting, paralyzing almost.
Right. And careful in that worried sense isn't really the point, I'd say. Maybe conscious is a better word. The butterfly effect isn't asking you to control the universe. That's impossible, like you said. And yeah, totally exhausting. What it really offers, I think, is awareness, a deeper sense of awareness. It's an invitation to realize you're not just, floating along passively. You're actively shaping things constantly with your words, your actions, your silences, your intentions every single day. Even in tiny ways, you're part of this whole dynamic unfolding. It's about appreciating that process and your role in it.
So it's kind of like Life is like walking through really thick fog. You can only see maybe a few steps ahead, right? You can't predict what's coming around the bend. But somehow that every step you take, every movement, it sends out an echo, a ripple into that fog. And that ripple goes somewhere, does something.
That's a beautiful analogy. Really poignant.
Yeah.
Exactly. And sometimes faced with all that fog, that uncertainty, we think, what's the point? I'm just me, one person, one small action. How can that matter? But here's a really big idea, maybe the biggest takeaway. Everything in this universe is connected. Deeply, invisibly, sometimes breathtakingly connected. The stars way out there, the rivers carting the land, the choice you made about breakfast yesterday, it's all part of the same huge, intricate web, cause and effect, constantly weaving together. There's this incredible dance going on.
It's kind of beautiful, actually. It makes me feel really small, like a tiny speck in it all. But also, weirdly, kind of infinite, too. Like I'm part of something massive, something that matters.
Because you are both. That's the thing. You're a single leaf, unique individual. And at the same time, you're also like the wind that rustles the whole forest. Unseen sometimes, but part of the movement. That's the paradox of being alive in this kind of interconnected, chaotic universe. It reminds you of your subtle but very real power, your agency.
So next time you're thinking that small thing you do doesn't really matter, that your effort is too tiny, your choice insignificant, remember the butterfly. Because maybe, just maybe, without even knowing it, you already started a storm. Or maybe you started a beautiful sunrise somewhere down the line.